right, I'm your host, CC Rockwell of the So You Want to Be series, and this week we'll be speaking with Adrien Palmer about his career into copywriting.
I am Adrien Palmer, copywriter for Brass Tacks Collective. Mainly, it means writing for websites, but that can extend into blogs, news articles, emails, social media, and kind of being a catch-all whenever someone wants extra eyes on something they wrote. Kind of indirectly. My mom's an English teacher actually, and so way back in like fifth grade, she was asking me to help her with papers. I was helping edit, especially essays she had, and from there, I just kind of liked writing in general, just my own stories. Became a songwriter at about 13, and for whatever project I was involved in since then, in some way, if it was writing the stuff for a website we wanted to do, writing an email, writing curriculum. I taught English in Japan for a bit. At some point, I'd always been writing in some fashion, and it kind of all came together once I moved to Dallas.
So
I feel like it's almost the opposite. Like songwriting makes copywriting easier because they're distinct. If that makes any sense at all. Like if you're thinking about it from too much of an artistic approach, you can end up, wanting to make something for a website too complicated, wanting to throw in a metaphor that doesn't work, throwing in a word that feels good but doesn't communicate well. So it's actually interesting to write a song and be like, oh, okay, that thought is better in this medium and this is better for this. So it kind of helps balance out both the logical creative side and the purely expressive creative side.
all right, cool.
A typical day at work or working at this point is right here in my home office where you start with your company check-in, see what everyone's working on that day. And then from there, it's just sitting here or standing here, depending on how I'm feeling. Just side note, standing desk, you're gonna wanna get one of those. One goes up and down, it's perfect for that. But yeah, it's a lot of bouncing back and forth between projects. Like I said, getting eyes on, someone sends you an email and says, can you look at this real quick? And you have to hop over to that. But it's a lot of writing. It's a lot of changing locations. If you have to go from something that's more like editing, this is my space for that. If I have to be creative, I'll just wander, hang out in the living room on the couch, head out to the backyard on the picnic bench we have there. But it's just a lot of doing what you need to do to get in the right headspace to continue writing and continue being in someone else's shoes so that you can write what they need for you to write for them.
That's funny. That's been consistent for all the writers. Because I talked to Misha and Dev, and they both said, like, Dev, she wakes up and she said that she'll just go on her piano to kind of like clear her head. And Misha said, like, she meditates to clear her head just because, that headspace is really important. And you touched on something where you said that you're not writing in your voice, like where you are with songwriting. You have to constantly find the voice of the client, and not even the client, you have to find the voice of who they're trying to reach. So you even got to take it a step beyond that, and that involves design thinking a lot. How do you find yourself implementing design thinking into copywriting?
Well, it starts all the way back with talking to the client. Like you said, we're not writing in our voices as writers necessarily. It's a lot of translation both ways. Like you listen to the client and they'll take an hour to say something that you're paid to say in one sentence. It's a lot of translation that way, but also in that same vein, listening to the designer talk about what they are capable of, what they're looking for, and then translating that back into copy. it's a lot more listening than you would think as a writer. The majority of what I do is very intentional listening, so that I'm not doing what I think they said, but what they were trying to say and what I felt them trying to say.
Mhm.
Well, it's a sadder story than I wish, but so when I came to Dallas, as you mentioned, I was doing preschool music. Like I went to schools, and part of that involved lesson planning, writing music for kids, but also like a website. And so I built a website, was doing blogs and all this. And in mid like 2018, that whole business like just went crazy. Like it was a partnership. Other side note, partnerships are doomed from the beginning. I don't know why that's a thing, but I've heard that. Like you need 3 voices at least. So if one person goes crazy, the other person isn't on their own going, no, 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 wait, you're my income. And then you're screwed. And that's kind of the situation I ended up in. And that's when Lisbeth was, she was working at Brass Tacks, and we had that big client coming on. I'll let you bleep this out if you want, Growth Destiny. And she knew that I was a writer. And so it just happened to be like at the moment that I lost like my entire income, like 2 weeks later, Keisha was like, hey, Lisbeth says you write. I've seen a little bit of your work. I guess that's the other side of it all. Like I had, even though like I wasn't using it anymore, I had this website I wrote for and built. And I had a website I made for the last city and all this other stuff. So having a portfolio, like evidence, not just like, see, I write songs, I bet I could write for websites too. But like, no, 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 I do both. I get the difference. Mm-hmm. And so Lisbeth sent her a couple links. Keisha took a chance on me, and it worked out.
That's dope. It's so funny. Everybody's story is like, well, Keisha took a chance on me.
Pretty much. Spent like 3 months waiting to get fired. Like, I think that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Knew this is coming. Still ain't ready. Still ain't ready. Yeah, I've been thinking about this one for like ever since you sent the original email. I don't know. I know there was like one project where I know I messed up. That's what it was. I'll backtrack for editing. So one of the biggest struggles, like periods of anxiety, was working with one specific client who, even with trying to listen as well to what they wanted, sometimes you'll have clients who they aren't sure what they want, and they're getting fed a lot of information and a lot of opinions, and each new voice in their head ends up being a new voice that they want you to speak in. Mm-hmm. And so we had a client I'm thinking of in particular, but it happens with a few different clients, where you write something in a specific voice and you send it, and then you get it back and they have completely contrary feedback to the path they sent you on a week earlier. And with this particular client, in going back and forth, I ended up just getting confused and like wasn't, following what their most recent suggestion was. I still got caught in this place and made the mistake of assuming I knew what they would want versus what they explicitly said for that round of edits, and was very nervous when I got their completely negative feedback that it wasn't going to be wouldn't get any well for me, put it that way. But thankfully, if you have the right boss and the right people around you who are on those meetings with you, you'll have enough voices so that you realize you're not the one completely losing it, that it's a bigger issue than your own perception. You got to have people around you who can tell you, no, you heard that right. You didn't lose it. And thankfully, I had people around me who went to bat for me. And even though I thought it was a huge failure on my part, it ended up just being a poor fit for that client. So rather than being a huge blow up, it was just a peaceful parting ways.
All right. See, that wasn't too bad, was it?
I'm good at what I do sometimes. The moment I knew how awesome I was. I can't say it was a moment. Like it's more an average over time. Like if you're a songwriter and you write a #1 hit, you can't expect your next song to also be a #1 hit and the next one and the next one. What ends up happening over time is that you write 10 songs and you get like enough distance to go, that one's really good. That one's more for me. I had to get something out. These are okay. Part of this is good. You start piecing together and realizing that you have that ability, but you let go of expecting that from yourself every single time. And so in copywriting, when that happened was, I remember it very well. We were writing for HRI, Human Rights Initiative from North Texas. And I wrote a mission statement for them and we presented it and they were just blown away. Like I actually saw the emotion in their faces as they were reading it. They're like you captured it. That was, yeah, that's what we were trying to say. You understand it. This is amazing. And the project before that was mediocre. And the project I did after that was, but it was that one in the middle where I saw how good I could write. And in the next project, even though their feedback was mediocre, I knew I had the ability to improve it. And I knew that based on the last one, like the skills were in place. And that's the moment where you let go of the expectations, you let go of this ridiculously high bar of perfection. And so that next project that started, man, I knew I had the power to like actually make it better. And eventually it was up to the level I wanted it to be and all of that. But there was no single moment, just a trend where I'm like, okay, everything I'm putting out is at least 5 out of 10. And then it inches towards like 6 or 7 out of 10. And then based on client feedback, it's been hovering around there. And I knew when I wrote something that wasn't on that level before I sent it off. I knew that I was like, okay, not your best, take a lap, step outside, picnic table time, reset your headspace, you can do better than this. And when I was able to self-regulate, it meant that what I gave clients just went way up.
That's dope. You are the first creative that I've interviewed so far. What has been 4, I think, 4 that has actually said I'm awesome. Every time I say, I asked Michael Felder is a graphic designer, and he has done design work for Spike Lee, the DLC, Def Jam, all these people. And I'm like, so when did you know that she was good? He was like, man, I'm still not good. What? Like, what are you saying? So you are the first creative where you said, I feel like I'm good.
Is that a good thing now?
It is.
It could easily be like, you're the first one to not be humble.
You always tell people you don't always have to be humble. There's some things you might want to be humbled in, maybe just a little. Yeah. But the idea of being humble, that's just for people without confidence.
Yeah. Like I'm at a point in life, in career and all that, where it's like the songwriting thing. Like if I write a song and it's not good anymore, it's not good, I'm like, okay, that one's done. I'll write another one. I'm still awesome. Like that doesn't take my value down. Like I'll write a better one next time. Like there's no more like, well, sometimes I write them, just not what like I don't do that anymore. I write it, I finish it, I move on, because I know that the awesome is there. I just need to recalibrate or something. I don't know.
That makes sense.
I mean, I may have to go with HRI. I thought I'd have a different answer by now, but that's the one that initially came to mind and the one I'm still on. Like, it's the work they're doing is incredible. And it was the first project where I really felt that I understood what, I mean, it was an hour-long call, like sometimes it is, where it's an hour-long call of 6 or 7 different people who are lawyers, who are civil rights workers, all these different things, who expressing their mission wasn't their strength. But you could tell just the way they talked about, you know, clients they helped and the work they've done. You could feel the passion, and I just pieced it together. And starting from that point of like 8 different people talked about these people they've helped, and nailing it from the beginning just made the rest of the project one of my favorite things I've done in quite a while. And that was the biggest website I'd worked on up to that point as well.
That was a huge site.
Yeah.
That was a huge site. Yeah, I think HR is probably still one of my favorites. Probably still one of my favorites.
Yeah, like even editing their bios was interesting. Like once you get on the call and like you've mirrored back to them what they're trying to express, like even reading about what got them into the work they're doing, like I felt a little bit like, okay, like, yeah, okay, he was all varsity like basketball in high school, cool, and now he's here. Like that's kind of, it was just interesting to see them as people and not just like a client who have to just execute some project for. I touched on one earlier, is be a good listener. And the second one is to read a lot. The difference between writing a song, writing an email, writing for a website, writing fiction, writing an autobiography, like the only way to really understand those and catch the nuances is just to read a lot. Back in 2017, I tried to at least read 1 book a month. And that means audiobooks for me, because at least until this year, I drove a lot. It was the easiest way to do it. But you have to see the nuance and how ideas are presented across all these different mediums so that you can be very concise and understand what the client wants.
Perfect.
Let's see. I think the other bit of advice, you mentioned Misha having her routines and all that. I definitely have a daily routine. Like I wake up and I journal. That's an important one. Go from journaling to yoga. I realize like the health of the body affects the mind in so many ways. Like it's crazy how different your writing is and how much more focused you can be if you get your full sleep, do some yoga, and eat a good breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that. I drink water, keep a water bottle by my desk here. It's way better than snacking constantly. Typically, we're thirsty when we think we're hungry. I've fallen down that trap before. That's why I'm wearing all black. And let's see, what was the other part? Yeah, meditation. Like I try to take 15 minutes a day of just complete silence. It's much easier to write when there aren't all these other voices and thoughts bouncing around in your head. It's a lot of knowing yourself and what you need to be ready to create that headspace you need for someone else.
That's an awesome answer. So yeah, but yeah, thank you for doing this. This was fun.
Special thanks to Adrien Palmer for coming out to chat it up with us about his career. In the next 2 weeks, you will hear from Chad Kursky, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to follow us across our social media on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook by searching for @BT Foundry. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time.